Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to this new episode. So, today I'm just going to share my solution on the Advent of Code Day 2 puzzle that I've coded in C Sharp. And I will actually compare between two types of solutions, or rather, two different programming paradigm. And let's see how it goes. So first and foremost, allow me to explain about this puzzle. So we are in some weird country and there's like an elf who wants to play some games with us. And the game itself is, so as you can see on my right panel of VS Code, we have 5 different games, and for each games we have what we call, let me check the naming, we have lines. So these are the lines, and for each game we have moves. So this is a move, and how do you know about the moves? Is that they are separated by semicolon. And then the aim of this game is to get a number of balls, their number, the maximum number actually, uh, for each move, and then determine if they are above or below, they are equal or below a certain number. And if so, we are just going to aggregate the game ID. So, for example, we want to know if a game in a game in one of the moves, do we have number 12 or less, and 14 for blue, and 13 for green. So if that's the case, then we are going to take the number. So I think the elf here is just going to remove a ball from his bag, and whatever color it will be, this is the number. So I'm a bit lazy to read the whole description, but no worries, let's get right into the code. So the first type of solution that I'm going to share is, actually I've written it a few times. Like you can see, I've tried written it in smaller methods, but then I thought it's way too easy. Apart from one trick in particular, it's way too easy to break it down into multiple methods, unless you want to do so, of course. So for me, you can do so in a single method. It's very easy actually. So just for context, this is the demo that you get from Advance of Code, but you also get the real data. And I think, or at least I am tempted to think that every player, programmer, or participant gets a different value. So I cannot take the value of someone else on the internet and paste it and it should work. So I think that doesn't work. And that is interesting actually. So let's start with the code calculate sum, which is a method with public accessibility. It returns a tuple of integer and integer. So why these both? So actually we return the sum and the power sum. So normally Advent of Code has two puzzles. It's the same one, but they add something else. And the first one, the sum, and the second one is the power. So let's leave the power separated to now. So the games here is basically I've written a method, a util code that is just going to read the file. We just pass the name and it will read the file and return an array of string, each having these lines. So that's what we call lines. So first and foremost, we are going to loop around the games and read the line. And once we've done that, we are going to split the line by a colon. And then the first part, we are going to get the idea of it. And the second part will be all about the games, the balls and the numbers that happened. And of course, without forgetting the moves. That's it, and we will keep track of these values. Why? Because we want to do so in the loop itself. So as you will see, we are going to have a different approach in the second method, which is a declarative approach. This one is an imperative one. Imperative meaning that we are going to loop procedural, another word is procedural. So in fact, this one is procedural, but it's also imperative because we are going to be changing state along our statement. So by state, I mean, for example, this value, var blue 0, we are going to change this value. So we continue. Now we are going to have our moves. And once we've done that, we split it so that in a move, we can have the number of the game itself, the actual games, or the different times the elf removes the balls. And so we call it piece. So for each piece, what we do is when we split by this, for this one, we call it piece. And for each piece, we are going to extract the number, the count here. And then we're also going to extract the color. So here I've used regex. Why? Because I actually used split first and it was nice, but my friend Huzel once shared with me his code and I saw plenty. I don't think it was this puzzle in particular, but one of the puzzles, and I saw regex all over the place. So I'm thinking I will be missing out if I don't use regex. But ideally, you can just split the same. But what you need to ensure is to trim the white space before and after, because, like, for example, here you have a white space, and this will affect your parsing C#, but even not only in C#, in other language, it will affect it and it will cause it to throw an error. So once you've done that, still within our inner loop of a loop, what we are going to do is to check if it's red, and if it's red, we are going to count it. So, and if the value is red for this line, for this move, we are going to take the value, and we do the same for blue and green. So the key here is why we have a separate, we have a count here and separates one. So the count is the number for each moves. So we are going to take the bigger number each time. So for example, here we have 12 blue. And for this move, we have 13 blue. And finally, we have 14 blue. So we are going to take the bigger number each time. So when I first work on this solution, that's why you see other variation here. I didn't take this into consideration, and as a matter of fact, my value was too low. So Advent of Code was always complaining. Therefore, what I did in this aspect was therefore to simply choose it. So I did some research, of course, online, and it was straightforward at the end of the day. So since we have these values already asked for us in the puzzle, we just check if we shoot it. So do we have less or equal 13 balls for green, blue, and red? And if that's the case, we are just going to increment the value. And actually, the second part of the puzzle asks you to just calculate the power, just like that, and do the same. And here we are returning our tuple, sum, and power sum. So as easy as it is, and just works. Now let's look at the second part. But before, let me just mention the pros and the cons here. In my opinion, using such a procedural imperative approach is better. It's way more performant in my opinion, because you're looping in this data set only once, and that's it. And when you're, even if you're looping nested forms in an inner loop, a nested loop rather, you're not doing queries, for example. Of course, you're changing state, because this is an normal, it's not functional programming whereby you don't really change states. Here we are changing state right and left. But apart from that, the only cons to this was if you were going to be either, for example, making an API request or accessing the database inside a loop, then this would have been very, very expensive because right now, like you can see in this data set, we have hundreds, 100 lines. So it would be very, very expensive. Therefore, some people prefer using a declarative approach, but in my opinion, right now, this type of exercise is going to be taking far more memory and performance, and even in terms of time, space complexity. Why? Because just quickly going through, we see that we are iterating a few times. But the best part, I think, or a better part, is that the code is more readable. At first sight, it looks prettier, it looks cleaner and more readable, and you have an idea what it does without really having to go deep into the inner or nested loops. Select many, select where and where. So I will go in the code in a few moments, of course. But here, so the pro side is if you're going to, let's say, make an API call, you can prepare your data first, and then outside of the select, which is an iterator here, for example, at the end, you can just simply make your API call or database call or any other expensive operations. So that's good part of it. But the bad part is, like you've just seen, we are doing quite a few iteration, and this can be avoided. I'm not sure how performant this is, but I've tried to use an array as far as possible because I know array is more performant than list due to the immutable nature. Immutable is for the array size, for example, but otherwise, of course, you can change the element its size itself. There is a data structure, though, that once you've declared it and put the data uh, already, you cannot change at all. So I'm not really remembering this data structure. I've forgotten about it. So yeah, first thing we are going to do with this one is we are going to take the games and map it. So select in C# is just map projects, each element of a sequence into a new form. So just like map in Ruby or JavaScript. So once we've done that, similarly, we are just going to split it together. So the logic is more or less the same right now. We are going to have the last part, and then we are going to split by moves as well. So now we have a more interesting part, and in that we are going to select many. So select many is similar to select, but it's going to flatten the structure. So it's going to have the sequence flattened out. So you can, of course, do it in two pieces, into methods separately, or chain them separately. But if the method already exists, it's much better, in my opinion. So in Ruby, you will have, for example, flat map, and I think Lodash also have a variation of flat map. So if you have, it's very useful to use actually if you have nested loops and you want to return a single level of an array, you use select many or flat map. So once we've done that, we are going to change select init, and we are going to pass the piece, and it's just the same thing. And here what we are returning is a, differently though, we are not going to return a, here we did not return anything actually, we figure it out procedurally, but right now we won't do that. We are going to return an anonymous hash array. This post colors will be mapped to this hash or dictionary. And once we've done that, what we are going to do is we are going to be using where. Where is like filter in other languages such as JavaScript, and I think in Ruby it is select. So is it select? Yeah, so it's same. It's actually same in these both languages. And then we have colors where we're just going to filter if it's red, and then we are going to max. What does max means here? We are going to invoke a transform function on each element of a sequence and return the maximum in value. So of course we are going to return the count, and if it's red we are going to have max red, max blue, and max green. And it's the same thing that I did above. It's the same as this. We are just here, it might be more readable, but the logic is absolutely the same thing. We are just going to take the max value in comparison to the value itself here. And once we've done that, we return an anonymous dictionary. How is it? So, yep, we just return this. And so you do this just to return the data set without, so these results get an array of dictionary or hash. I think it's easier to say hash, but I don't know. So I've been working on Ruby. I work on Ruby. And so we have the tendency to call it hash. Okay, so here it's strong type. You can already see what we have here. Game ID, max red, blue, and the power itself. And there we are going to, of course, redo a filter on it, result filter, max green, max blue, and so on and so forth. And it's the same thing, and we are returning the same tuple. So let's try again and see the result. And of course, it's going to work, but well, it's working here, and it works on our good friend Advent of Code. So hey, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe for more to come. And even if this is something you want to see more, comment and also maybe suggest some feedback, or also what you want to see more, maybe on programming or IT professionalism or career advices. I will be very glad for you to do that. And thank you. See you later.